assistant horticulture agent for the Ag Center. And Michael, where are you based out of?
I'm based out of Dean Lee Research Station, which is outside of Alexandria behind LSUA.
Okay. And you are also the statewide point of contact for pecans as well.
Yeah, so the whole state, if you're having a pecan issue, I can help you with that. If you have an orchard, I can even do a site visit if needed to help you with any production issues you may be having. It's a bit tricky as a homeowner because sometimes it's really hard to spray a big tree in your yard, but I can at least help you form a cultural practice plan to be able to help with whatever problem issues you might have.
That's true. Okay. Well, that's good to know for everybody because you're relatively new to the Ag Center, correct?
I've been almost a year. It will be in July.
Okay. Well, you're older than I am. So anyways, this is another Live at 5 session, guys. I'm Anna Rebeck, social media strategist, and today we're doing home fruit production. So this is going to be a really cool one. I asked Michael to come on. He's doing something really, really neat with strawberries, and I kind of wanted him to show everybody what he's been doing. So, Michael, you want to take it away? It's all you.
Sure. Well, we'll start with strawberries are actually a hybrid of two native plants native to the North and South American continent. And one of the parents is coastal strawberry called Chilenensis, which is really the one that our crosses are made from, are from Chile, but it's also native to the Pacific West Coast. I like it because it has kind of a waxy leaf and it makes a nice ground cover. And then the other parent is Virginiana, Variegated Virginiana, and this makes a smaller fruit and the leaf's a bit different. And you'll look close. I'll pull up a commercial strawberry hybrid, and you can see how it kind of gets both of the qualities of the different fruits there.
Okay.
What I really like about this one, so I have a strawberry trial going, and I'm looking at different ones geared for homeowner production. And what I really like about this selection while I'm holding it up is that red flower.
That is gorgeous. Holy smokes.
This one has a lot of ornamental potential because of that. And let's see, I need to change where we can see the stand we have. So at the moment, this is just 12 of the selections that I have. And they're all in pots, terracotta pots about this size.
Okay.
And that's what I built my stand around. You could build different things. What I like about this is I'm trying to go low input because as a homeowner, there's only so much you're going to want to treat it and spray with something. So with this, my method to keep away from slugs is pretty much escape. Let's lift it off the ground. And I can see if there's any slugs because they're going to want to hide under any little nooks and crannies. Like if I had these pots on the ground, they would hide up underneath here. And even when I put some on here this morning, there was a nasty little slug just on the lip here.
Ugh,
so,
yeah.
But having it right up off the ground lets me watch it quicker, reduces the amount of what I have. Now, not everybody needs pots that big. The reason I have pots that big is I'm multiplying plant material to look at a more probably research scale, and also just for to be able to share with stakeholders in my region. One of the
now,
other
are these
regions,
like common varieties you find, like homeowners can find at the store, or like what kind of trial are you doing?
Yes. So probably the top four corner there are your All-Star, Quinault, Seascape. I have Ozark Beauty and Eversweet. And
Okay.
those ones you should be able to find fairly easily in your local nurseries. And that's one reason I included them in the trial. I want to be able to look at what people can get. Now, I have some which are a bit harder to get, but I think have good disease resistance because as a homeowner, I want to be able to grow these year to year. Commercial strawberries, you're going to plant them and you're going to treat them as annuals. You're going to rip them all out every year. Well, as a homeowner, we don't want to do that. We'd like to buy it once and grow it, at least for me, 5 years before I have to change it out, preferably longer. So ones I'm looking at fitting that also are Albion and Mara Du Bois, and they're supposed to be good disease-resistant selections for that as well.
Okay. For commercial production, doesn't that go on during the spring? So like you're planting them now?
Yeah, so commercial production, you would be planting in the fall You would grow them over the winter. You would give them frost protection, not to protect the plants. It's really to protect the blooms because the blooms are more frost sensitive than the plants. And what they're doing is they're trying to protect the blooms to get the first crop out there and get a premium for having a crop out there early.
Okay.
Now they're going to get, I don't have any bare roots right now because I got all my bare roots planted. But for what a bare root plant is they, commercial, and even some of these selections you might have to order, you're going to buy it and it's just going to be all roots exposed and the crown cut back to a certain level. And that's what commercials producers are going to start with. And that's what you might have to start with for some of these harder to get varieties. And those, I would say it is better to start in the fall. But I can tell you, even the nurseries in Forest Hill, close to where I'm based, they stock their strawberries in the spring. And that's not the time that you officially plant them, but that's when people want to buy them. So you
Sure.
may be limited based off of, especially if you're going to go to your local big box store to get these, or even your local nursery. They may stock them at the time of year that's not ideal, but you can get them started, and you're going to want to do kind of an ever-bearing one. And you won't be getting a bare root. You will get one in a container like this. And this has the advantages of being already fairly start. And you can see this even already has strawberries on it.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
So this is about the size I'm comfortable with. A smaller plant, which I really, right behind me. So this is one I started from a bare root. So I bought it and it was just exposed roots in the crown. And it's come up. It's the first, if it had a flower on it right now, I would take that flower off to focus on vegetative growth. As
Okay.
opposed to this one, I'm comfortable. It's got a little bit more size to it. I'm okay with it spending some of the energy on the fruit. Although I would probably prefer it to be a little bit bigger. But this is Eversweet. Well, no, this is Ozark Beauty. But if this was Eversweet, I would say it's just a small variety anyway.
Can you grow, do you grow them in deep pots or shallow pots? How do strawberries grow?
You see, I did an experiment of that myself. And I had them in a big pot about this deep. And I found that was wasted extra space. They're not very deep rooted plants, at least the ones I've had. And really, this is about as far deep as their roots will go. And you see, I only fill up to this line right here. So it's not that deep at all, but they don't have a very deep root system. And that's one reason, I don't know if I've mentioned it, I like terracotta pots real well.
Yeah.
I can tell by the look on the outside of the pot whether or not I need to water the plant or not, because the texture of terracotta changes.
We have a question, and guys, all the other questions not about strawberries we're going to get to, but we're first going to answer strawberry questions. She's asking, let me put it on screen. What is fertilizer recommendations for strawberries?
Oh, I know Miss Johnny. She's one of my master gardeners.
Cool.
So, strawberry fertilizations, when I'm growing for the plant itself, I'm just using a standard water-soluble, water-based fertilizer because I'm okay, like for this, pushing foliar growth. Once I'm getting to a point where I want to encourage more fruit development, I'm going to cut back on my nitrogen source. I'm going to focus more on the potassium and the phosphorus. So I'll probably move to more of a water-soluble 8-24-24, and that'll be what I fertilize with. And I fertilize my plants probably every week and a half to 2 weeks, depending on how they're growing.
What kind of soil are you using?
Because this is what I want to be able to recommend to a homeowner, I'm using a commercially available Miracle Grow peat-based mix, because you should be able to source that anywhere in the state.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't mind using an LSU's proprietary blend, but I can't get that up here.
Man, Tiger Grow. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you show us, you have a regular strawberry pot too.
Yes, I do. Let's see. And I have it just so that I can show it too. So they grow fairly well in here. This pot was actually here when I moved here, so I said, let's try it and see what happens. And what I do like about it is it makes it real easy for the fruit to hang off, which reduces any disease pressure. Because that's another thing. You really don't want your fruit hitting the substrate of what you're growing it in. it can cause rots. So I try to plant either my plants at the edge of a large pot or in the center. That's the other thing I was going to talk. You can use just smaller terracotta pots.
Okay.
And I prefer to let my fruit hang off the edge. Here, it lets more airflow. It greatly reduces the disease pressure. Does mean you're going to have to watch for birds, though.
Yes,
they will occasionally come by, but you see, it makes pretty fruit. And this is, to be honest, I wasn't fertilizing like I was recommending over the winter. So it didn't put on its fruit until much later. And now it's real happy.
Right on. Yeah, no, it looks beautiful. How long are you planning to run the study for?
I couldn't hear you while I was putting the plant away. So.
Yeah. How long do you plan to run that study for?
Several years, because I want to be able to. I already had one unfortunate casualty, and it was one that was developed a little bit further north. And I said, but it has a very pretty flower. Let's try it. And it showed me it didn't like this area that well. So it really varies. I do a lot of research into the selections I choose. Most fruit strawberry breeding programs are up north. So I either have to use older heirloom varieties that were developed when the South had breeding programs, or find, sometimes I'm able to find one from a southern, like Florida does still have a breeding program that I'm interested in some of their selections as well.
Okay, that's great. I think you already answered this question, but Bruce was asking, do you have less trouble with slugs in a pot or in a ground situation?
In a pot, I'm going to have less trouble. In the ground, even if I have a pot on the ground, occasionally I would need to go under and check if I have slugs, and depending on how merciful I am, how I'm going to kill them that day. But that's why I built these up, to greatly reduce, because there are some great slug baits you can use if you don't have to worry about other wildlife. I have.
Hey, Michael, before you get to it, the sun's hitting you really bad in the face right now.
Let's see. I may just have to back up a little bit. Can you still hear me all right?
Yeah.
No, it's real bad still. Let's see.
That's better.
No, it was. Oh, well.
That's better. We got you.
I can't move the sun very readily. But slugs are an issue, but their escape is probably the easiest if you have the ability to build up. Other than that, there are slug baits you can use, some of various. If you have pets, you're going to want to be limited by some, but there's plenty of other home remedies that work as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was all the questions we had on strawberries over here. We had a few other questions. Someone was asking, where can a homeowner find male papaya flowers? I need to pollinate my female flowers. No males have bloomed yet. Any leads?
I don't know where you're going to get that here. Really, unless you're in the New Orleans area, you're very brave to even be trying with papaya. It's very tropical. I would defer to the agents down there that have more experience working with tropicals than I do, because up in this area of the state, you might have 1 year with a papaya and that's about it. Same with avocados. I get a lot of calls, people saying, can I get cold resistant avocados? And I just don't recommend them because they don't hold up as well as we'd like them to up here in the middle of the state upward.
Okay. I'll add that to the comments, guys, a link to find your local horticulture agent. So it's in the comments now, and you can go there and make sure to email your agents right now because we still are working remotely.
Let's see if I can change it a little bit. I'm tired of bending over. There we go. That's a little
there
bit
we go. Bam. So what do you want to talk about next?
Okay. Well, I think I've covered a good bit of the introduction for strawberries, but that's not what everybody's going to grow. I know we've been campaigning a lot through the website Blackberries. Now, blackberries have been so popular that this is the biggest blackberry plant I could source in Forest Hill right now.
Wow.
And they had just potted it up. So this is a nice thornless selection. There's a lot of different ways to grow blackberries. My ultimate word of wisdom for blackberries is if you're going to grow these, have a trellising system that you know you're going to maintain and you're going to stick with. I like a primocane suppression method. It's a lot of work. Blooming Colors in Alabama has some videos out there about how to maintain that. It's a really neat, novel technique, and I think it's worth adopting. It's much better than, especially on a homeowner scale, there's a lot of automated systems which are just outside of our budget. But there's a lot of good blackberry selections. The main things we have to worry about is heat damage. Now, that may cause discolored fruit, but the fruit is still fine. You may just have white little spots on it, and that I say that because sometimes there's a disconnect on what you can buy at the nursery and what we recommend. And a lot of the heat tolerant varieties, sometimes they're on a clock on when they can get out there to the nursery.
They were asking, Britt's asking, what was that trellis you just mentioned?
It's a primocane suppression method. T-pups sometimes is what it's called. But you can look up primocane suppression method with blackberries and you should be able to find it. And if not, you can contact me through the Ag Center and I can send you the resources I have about it to help you with it.
And I'll put in, guys, the comments, the blackberry growing guide that the Ag Center has put out as well. So that's now in the comments as well.
Now here's another thing people don't think about. You can have home fruit production really does benefit from having ornamentals. Verbena is probably one of my favorite to plant in combination. You want to attract pollinators to your fruit. And it's interesting, I really was getting poor pollination with my strawberries until I got some of the native selections that attracted more pollinators. And once I did that, my pollination percent went all up. Now, I can't attribute it just to pollinators because I also had a lot more things that could cross-pollinate too. So there is I can't completely claim that it's just pollinators, but there's other, I do think having the ornamentals, plus it gives you something else to look at throughout the year.
That is true. The blackberry varieties, do you have any recommendations for blackberry varieties?
I have to check the literature for that. That's not, there's someone I'm working with who's wanting to start a commercial orchard, and we're going to have to be very careful on what varieties we end up selecting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it really depends on what your goals are. If you're using that trellis method I'm talking about, you can use a thorned variety and have no issue.
Okay.
But if you have a lot of children in your backyard and you're not going to invest in that high intensity production, you might want a thornless variety like this matches here, so that you're okay telling the kids to go in the backyard and pick some blackberries.
Do you know when the best time to prune those would be?
Oh, I don't deal with those extensively, so I'll
okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. That's what
I willfully admit my ignorance there.
No, fair enough. I put the again the blackberry growing guide, guys, in the comments, and let's move on to citrus. This is awesome. What you got there?
This is a kumquat. It's one of the citrus I could source real easily in Forest Hill. And I wanted to talk about this because this is probably, I get more calls probably about citrus than any other fruit tree.
I bet so.
I'm sure that's consistent for most of this area down in the state. Now, one thing you have to pay attention to is citrus is grafted. So you can see where it was grafted here.
Mm-hmm.
So you are going to want to keep anything that tries to put out shoots down from here, because that's wasted effort for the plant. And in fact, most of the house calls I've been on with problems with a citrus tree is because the rootstock is put out shoots and dwarf the plant, or a lot of times it's because I live in the transitional area of the state, and you're going to have to worry about cold damage coming through and killing off the top part of the graft every now and then. So anybody in our area of the state, I would encourage you to get a good grafting knife. Eventually, you may have to top work your tree and graft, but it's much easier than people realize, and that's something, if you get to that point, your local extension agent should be able to help you with.
Britt just asked, wow, are all citrus grafted?
Yeah, most of them are. I can't make a statement and say all of them are. And that's why you may wonder, why am I paying so much more for some of these fruit trees? It's because they're not rooted cuttings. If they were rooted cuttings, they could sell it to you easy and cheap. But most of your woody trees are grafted at some point or another. And that takes just an extra level of skill and it adds to that cost thing because you lose some trees all the way along. I didn't bring it. I probably should have. There was a lemon tree I was looking at the nursery I went to, and I could see where they had grafted it one year and the bud didn't take. So they went higher up and grafted it another time. So it is a pretty intensive process. Most citrus trees you're growing, you can try growing citrus trees from seed. In fact, that's been some of the calls I've been on because it can take so long for them to come from seed. Like a pecan, it can take 10 to 15 years for you to get that production from a seed. Citrus is actually very close to that as well. It would take a good bit of time.
That's crazy. I just put in the comments too. So we filmed a trifoliate orange rootstock video on where it comes up from and everything. So it's also in the comments, guys. Then well, if I can hide myself, it's there too. But
okay, that's a very good thing. And grafting, and that's what you'll be grafting on. That's probably the most cold resistant one. So that's what you're going to want. I would look, if you can, try to see where the nursery it is that you're getting the citrus tree from, where they're sourcing it. It's probably grafted on trifoliata if it's a Louisiana source tree.
Okay. Sorry,
we have several questions. So do we want to get those?
Messica's asking, what is your favorite citrus grafting method?
Budding, probably because it's so easy. Now, you do have to have the time. As far as doing it at the right time, sometimes, especially, it takes a little bit of skill level for that. Probably cleft grafting is the one I would tell most people to get into to start with, because it's just a little bit easier to start with. And it's fair. There's the diagrams for it are easy to follow, and you don't have to worry about, oh, did I put the bud upside down and all that type of thing. Yeah, that can't be. So cleft grafting, if you've never grafted before, if you have some experience, I would look into bud grafting.
Okay. Crystal's saying, I inherited 2 citrus trees where the rootstock was dwarfing the actual citrus tree. We've cut it back. Will it begin producing citrus again?
Depends on where you cut it back. If you cut it back to where the rootstock is, no, you won't get any citrus anymore. You'll have to regraft. Now, dwarfing is actually a desirable characteristic in fruit trees, because I tell people that all the time. Keep them pruned back to where you can pick. Anything that makes above where you can pick is useless.
Fair.
So, but I can understand the desire to want a bigger tree. And that's one of those things, I'd have to see some pictures of where you cut. And so I could hopefully identify a graft line and tell you whether or not you still have the original thing there or not.
Okay. And then we had another question on here. It was about leaf-footed bugs from Craig. He's got leaf-footed bugs in his pomegranate tree. Is there a control method?
Really, the best control method for a homeowner is actually going out there and killing the bugs yourself. It's not a very satisfying thing to recommend. The only time they're susceptible to chemicals is at their kind of juvenile stage, which is they're kind of an orange looking thing. And even then, I recommend going out maybe with a bucket half full of soapy water and getting them in the bucket and drowning them, as opposed to having to spray anything. Pomegranates are an interesting thing. I love pomegranates from an ornamental perspective. They don't make fruit a lot of times because of our high humidity. They prefer an arid climate, but you should still be getting some and hopefully enjoying them.
Okay. I'm going to put your email address in the comments if that's okay, Michael.
That's fine. I love fruit tree questions are my favorite ones, other than camellias and pecans.
So guys, if you live in that area, for sure, email Michael. He's got you covered on that. We had a few other questions from people I took beforehand on citrus. So someone was asking, when should they plant satsuma and lemon trees?
That's going to be, it depends on when you get them and how you're going to maintain them in the pot. Now, a pot like this, in this citrus tree, is used to getting watered at least once a day.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be watering it once a day, you probably should go ahead and plant it in the ground.
Okay.
That way it can get better used to its surroundings. And even in the summer, I always say, at least for that first week, you may need to water once a day, and possibly even that first summer. You want to especially you want to protect your investment. These are expensive trees. Depending on where you're getting them, I think the best price I've seen a few places is $20, but it's not unusual for it to be 35 and 40. So you're going to want to spend the extra care to take care of it. There's a lot of older research that says in the fall is the best time for some fruit trees to plant. You encourage fall root development, and that works okay for some. Citrus really has a quasi dormancy period where it kind of just completely shuts down, and I wouldn't want to depend on that root development in the fall. In fact, I don't depend on that on all my things. I almost would rather people plant their trees in the summer and water them properly than, because a lot of people will plant in the fall and not water in the summer, and then the tree dies.
Oh, okay. Meska's asking, do you think it's too late to fertilize citrus?
It's not too late, but I wouldn't do it heavy. I would do it because you can see even this one here. Well, I'm not going to pull it up to the camera, but it's got a fruit on it already. I might focus on something heavier on the potassium and the phosphorus and go from there.
I just put the Louisiana Home Citrus Production Guide in there too, guys. So just as a reference for anyone who's growing citrus as well in the comments.
But I like to fertilize my trees and stuff a little bit throughout the year.
Okay.
So even pecans, I like to do at least 2 fertilizations, once in March and probably once in October.
Oh, cool. Okay. Deidre's asking, what's a good safe insecticide on fruiting trees or vegetables?
It depends on what you're fighting. One thing I like to recommend for some stages is just detergent and water, like Dawn and water mixed together. And that will be strong enough to get through the outside layer of a lot of insects. Now, it won't get a lot of that goes back to dormant oil. And it depends on the time of the year you're hitting things. I'd really have to know what you're trying to control to be able to give you the best, either sustainable or whatever your goals are for your production system are.
She might comment again. I'll let you know, Michael.
Whether it's for sustainability, worry about exposure, all those things. There's multiple options you can take.
Cool. Michelle said she's in Raceland and wants apples and peaches. Do you know any varieties that will work?
Help me. Where is Raceland in the state?
I'm not with geography. Hang on.
I'm not either. So consult Professor Google for me.
We got Google Maps. It's fine.
Yes.
Raceland. I have. All right. Here we go. Let's see. It's near Thibodeau.
Okay. And she just responded. So that's further south. Anna for apples, probably. Apples, I'm going to be concerned mainly about what other cedar and juniper trees you may have. Those are sources for apple diseases that are very detrimental, and you have to spray. In fact, the same for mayhaws as well. So you have issues if you're too close to cedar and juniper trees. But if you are okay, not too close, or you're okay with spraying, Anna's one. Actually, Kerry Hefner in the Monroe area is one that I would defer to for apples. He has kind of a heirloom apple trial he's going with.
He is the apple guy.
He's our apple guy. So there's certain agents within the state that specialize on different things, and that's sometimes we defer to them on that. Okay. So, and I'm checking my laptop. Unfortunately, the charge is going down a little bit more, so we may have to change to my phone. I've got about 15 minutes, but I'll know where I can switch over to my phone when I need to when the time comes.
Yeah, just let me know. Deidre said something was eating her jalapeno leaves right now. She doesn't know what though. So.
I unfortunately I don't know what's eating them either. There are some things you can tell by the pattern of the damage. Beetles have a certain kind of particular damage pattern that they normally have. I'd have to see a picture and do some research on it to find out what your problem is. And there's different things. If it's a caterpillar for some reason, BT is what I would probably use because it's safe. And it only affects the caterpillars as they eat it. And there's just a bunch of different treatment options you could use for that.
Fair enough. That was all the questions we had over here in the comments. So it's up to you where you want to go next, Michael.
I don't think I mentioned blueberries yet.
No, yay.
So in blueberries, probably after strawberries are the one I'm going to recommend for home production the most, because they're fairly easy to grow, especially if you have acidic soil that you can't do much else with. I like blueberries. They love it acidic. In fact, if you have a 4.5 pH, that's where they would like to be. And even if you don't, they actually tend, I would look for a dwarf selection, but they do well even if you're going to grow them in the pot. You know, I would just keep them in a nice big sized pot. So I think blueberries are a nice, easy thing. You can look how many are on this plant that I just picked up from the nursery today. So they're very easy, low skill level. And only thing, there is a science and a technique to pruning them more properly. I'm going to probably want to keep them pruned. They're pruned a different way than most people anticipate. Instead of letting them grow tall and cutting back, I prefer to cut back old limbs as far to the ground and let them put new shoots out. Those will be much more productive.
Okay.
Rather than trimming to size, I do okay, let's trim out old wood completely because they make more berries on fresh wood.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Someone's asking, Meska's asking, can she grow a pineapple guava or feijoa from a cutting?
So that's a pineapple guava?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was ignorant of that term, so I'm glad you knew what that was. It is hard to root, but they can.
Okay.
Because I remember at the Hill Farm at LSU, we had that big pineapple guava plant, and that is the one we would have the students root for disappointment.
Oh, that's sad. I remember that. I did it myself.
Yeah, so that they say, okay, this is the one that doesn't root well, if it's what we're thinking about.
Oh my goodness. Michelle just said she bought a Blue Tiff and Premier Blueberry. She said, do you have any recommendations on varieties that work this far south?
I think those are both good selections. If I recall correctly, they're out of the University of Georgia, which has a very similar climate. It has Tiff in the name, comes out of the Tifton area, and they get very, very hot in the summer like we do. So I trust some of the selections that come from them.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and switch to your phone, Michael, since
it says we have 12 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead while we're in a lull.
Yeah, I would be. We're getting more questions, and I don't want you to drop right when we're.
Yeah, so I'm having to figure out. I'm not as technically literate as I wish I was.
I think Meska was asking, do you have a source for the pineapple guavas? Do you know, like, do local nurseries provide those? Or?
I would have to check in Forest Hill. A lot of people in Forest Hill specialize in different things, and sometimes I'll go and ask them, hey, do you know who has this? And they'll help me with it.
Okay. TJ is asking about fig or persimmon fertilizers and when.
I kind of like to treat them like I do a pecan tree. I want to fertilize them before they leave. Okay.
Here, I got you. You want me to put you on?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. We had to switch to his phone. So, All right, we just lost him. He'll come back. Michael will be right back. His laptop died and the battery was getting a little slow. So he will be right back on his cell phone. Just give us a second to check it out. But again, I'm going to put some links in here for you guys. And Michael's back with us. Hey, we lost you for a second.
Okay, you can see me all right?
Yep, we can see you great.
Okay, it's a much smaller screen. I apologize for the technical difficulty. Any question that we got while I was gone that I can answer?
Sure, yeah, we have a few. So Chris was asking earlier, and I missed his question. I apologize, Chris. Have you tried, I don't know how to pronounce this, Cherimoyas, Cherimoyas?
Or starfruit. I have not tried either one of those. Those are slightly a bit more tropical. and
Okay.
I'm just slightly a bit too far north to have confidence trying those.
Chris says, how well do custard apples or caramoyas grow from seed in Baton Rouge? Also, star fruit from seeds.
He's really liking those tropical plants. That's I encourage people to try it. You might find one that works. Seeds, though, things don't come very consistently from seed. A lot of plants don't come true from seed. In fact, a lot of the strawberry plants I have, only one selection I have comes true to seed, and it's really the wild strawberries that I'm germinating. Boy, these are a bugger to germinate. They're really tiny, tiny seeds.
Are they? Oh, geez.
Yeah, in fact, I have to. That is one thing. If you do decide to play with the Alpine Strawberries, the seeds are very tiny. You're going to need a mist nozzle, and but I would have to do the research into those fruit to know if they came true to seed and
Sure.
how long I might have to wait from seed to get the plant.
Oh, and Chris said he has some growing. I guess his custard apples and star fruit and things like that. He said he has started some.
How long has he had them?
He said, but died from frost and came back. He can send
Ah,
photos.
you see, I think that would be a perpetual problem. Now, if you had a protected area, I would say yes, you could do all right. And when I say protected, I mean like a greenhouse or something structure like that. But
Okay.
if you're if they're dying back to the ground every year, you might struggle to get good quality fruit production, unless it's something crown based, like a blackberry, which routinely does that.
Fair enough. TJ said, can you repeat the fig and persimmon fertilizer answer because it cut out when you were talking about it?
Oh, I apologize about that. It really depends on how old the fig is. It's fig and persimmon, right?
Yeah, it was fig and persimmon fertilizer.
So persimmons are actually going to want to treat heavy. A lot of people end up having alternate bearing persimmons, where they have a big crop one year and a low crop the next year because of mineral nutrition. They're low on their mineral nutrients. So what you want to do is, I would say, about right before bud break, and that varies across the state, wherever your area may be, you're going to want to hit it with some fertilizer. Now, persimmon, I would trust a soil test. I would get a soil test, see what I have there. The only bad part about our soil test lab is they really don't test for nitrogen. There's a lot of reasons why. It's very hard to test. It's very expensive to test. So I would probably always err on the heavy side on the nitrogen.
She said they're in 5-gallon pots.
Oh, that may. Okay, for that point, you're going to be fertilizing just to maintain the plants, not to get optimum crop load off of. You're going to be I would say you could, as long as they're in their pot, you could safely use any water-based fertilizer you could get, like a Miracle Grow, a Stay Green, anything like that, and I would just fertilize it periodically. I would not plan on getting a lot of fruit off of them at that stage. Especially, it's just hard to keep them watered enough in a 5-gallon pot to get full fruit production.
Okay. She's also
asking, but it's difficult.
So basically, you'd suggest planting in the ground.
Yes, but that's I understand the dilemma. I'm renting a house. That's why everything you've seen so far has been in a pot.
Makes sense. She also is asking about pawpaw trees. Do they do good in Calcasieu? When to plant?
Pawpaw trees do well all across the state. You want to have multiples of them to ensure good pollination. They don't pollinate one another. And the other trick is they like to spread through roots. So you may think you have multiple ones in a cluster and they're all really the same one genetically. So pawpaws do great. I don't care for them texture-wise, but they are a lovely fruit and a lovely native fruit to the U.S. that I really like. So I greatly encourage people to grow them and just to have several to try from. I believe Tennessee had a breeding program for a while, so they have some nice selections. It might have been Kentucky, though, but there exist a few improved selections out there that if you do a little searching, you can find.
Cool. Pam said, when is the best time and what should I use for fertilizer for blueberry plants? She has 3 rabbit eyes.
Depending on how she has them grown, I like an acidifying fertilizer, like an ammonium sulfate. Not aluminum sulfate. I don't like aluminum sulfate, and a lot of people I will tell get ammonium sulfate somehow end up with aluminum sulfate. There's nothing wrong with it, but the aluminum does nothing for the plant. So I prefer an ammonium sulfate for acidifying for my nitrogen. Other than that, I really love calcium nitrate, but that may be overkill for a blueberry. But if I had a blueberry in a pot, I might hit it with a little bit of calcium nitrate, especially since I would probably be growing tomatoes too, and I had it already. But other than that, those would probably be my nitrogen sources, and then maybe an 8-24-24.
Thank you.
A lot of people use Epsom salts, and that's kind of a magnesium sulfate. It's slightly acidifying, and that's what you're trying to do. You're making it acidic. So you can also do that by adding a lot of organic matter if you have it in the ground.
Okay. And don't forget, guys, our soil lab is open for testing now. It is back open. So, Michael, where can they get like a soil test kit?
You should be able to get them at most county offices. I keep one in my car for when I go on site visits and someone needs it. We have tons of boxes we give out. They come in a little postal box that you ship out with the check or however you're going to pay for it in there, and they should get back with you fairly shortly. Probably the biggest thing I'm often looking for is pH. I have a lot of different pHs in the territory I cover in the middle of the state, the 6 parishes I have. So that's the number one thing I look at, but then I look at a lot of the other things. Especially if you've had a garden for a while, pay the extra to test for micronutrients if it's on there, because those can become deficient if you've had a garden in the same spot year to year. I get a lot of calls about boron deficiency, actually. Because it gets bound up at acidic and soils a good bit, and a lot of times I can trace it down to, well, let's try this and see if it helps.
Wow. Okay. And I just found for everybody the Soils Lab has a register of where you can get a soil test kit. So I just put that webpage into the comments so you can find a soil test kit if you need one.
And it may be tricky because I know our parish office is closed, but that's one of the things that if you contact the parish office, we should be able to leave some outside for you or find a way to get it to you.
Awesome. Pam just said her blueberry plants are in the ground, and she just got her analysis from the Ag Center. So that's great.
Okay, so if I knew what her pH was, I could help her, but it doesn't hurt to hit them with acidifying because they just love acidic conditions so much.
That's awesome. All right. We got one more from Kenny. He's saying, do Japanese kumquat trees grow well from seed? How about branch propagation?
So that's pretty much the loquat or Japanese plum. Let's see. I assume that's what loquat is what I assume. And yes, they do grow from seed a little bit more readily than most of the other things people have asked me about. Yes, you can grow those from seed. Like I said, there will be a delay, and they won't come true to seed. It will taste different than the mother tree. The only way to get one that's exactly like that is to propagate asexually through cuttings or grafting. But with that, I would do through cuttings. It roots fairly well, if I recall correctly.
And I wanted to ask you a few more questions I got from our audience beforehand, Michael. We had one from a lady. She's saying her Lisbon lemon tree is not producing, and she planted it a year ago. What's going on with it?
And that's why I really like getting emails with pictures, because I can look and see probably the number one complaint I can trace for a lemon tree. Lemons are probably the least cold hardy citrus people attempt to grow here, other than lime. And they die back in a very cold winter, and you may have to regraft it. But a year is also a short time period. If you've seen blooms on it and it's not forming, there might be something else, but it may just be taking a year off to get adjusted to whatever you have it in. If it's still in a pot, it may be getting used to its new environment. It may need a little bit of fertilizer. as an agent, I feel like I play a game of 64 questions several times a day because I have to find out all the outlying conditions before I can give you a guess on what it is.
So basically, guys, make sure to send in really good photos to your agents when you send it in. Send in pictures, send in video, but send in good quality right now because that's what they have to go off of, especially right now since everyone's working remotely, correct?
Unless it's an emergency, which there aren't many home fruit production emergencies, I'm not really allowed to go to your house.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. So again, email him with good pictures. Pam said she just got a 5-gallon Meyer lemon and she needs to repot it. What size pot do you recommend?
That's going to be tricky. I would encourage her to take it out the pot and look at what the roots look like and see what it is. Once you get above 5 gallons, you're hitting substantial pot range and it's going to be heavy and you're going to need help moving it. One, I would be making sure I'm pruning it back a little bit. You don't want it to be leggy, growing tall. That's another thing that I would probably consult a picture with. But I wouldn't feel bad about going up to a 10-gallon pot or even a 7-gallon pot. Probably, but I would have to see what the root system looked like to determine how I would make that personal choice. But you're not going to want to be jumping huge pot increment sizes because eventually you just get to something that's unmanageable, like 2 camellias I have here.
Well, you're the camellia king, so
yeah. So I've had these with me wherever I've lived for the past 5 or so years. So the pots just keep getting bigger. But also I have border grass in the pots because I think it looks pretty. So that's another complication.
Angela says the moles are bad this year. Have you heard anything about moles?
Oh, I got calls about moles. Yes. And the problem is, and that's something you'll find a lot of stuff out there. And part of my job is not sugarcoat it, to give you information based off of research from other universities and ours. And the truth is deterrents don't work. They're baits and all that type of stuff. You have to set traps, and it's kind of gruesome, but you have to set traps and handle them that way. Or get a cut.
Yeah. A few more questions for you. One of my favorite questions was, is there a difference between native muscadines and nursery bought varieties?
Oh, a huge difference. And I remember we had this discussion earlier. If you're digging up muscadines out of the ground, you want to be careful because in the wild, there can be male and female muscadine plants. And if you dig up a male, it's never going to make anything for you. It'll make the pollen for the female ones. But a lot of the commercial ones are either females or preferably perfect flower hermaphroditic ones where they will self-pollinate or pollinate one another.
Okay.
So you're going to want, you probably won't have consistent results you're happy with if you do it digging up native ones in the wild, or if you're planting from seed in the wild, because especially from seed, it can be 50% or so male or female, depending.
Man, that's crazy. Okay. Another one for you. What variety of peach trees do best in South Louisiana? Is there such a thing? I don't know.
There are. That's one. That's for our enfranchised home gardeners and those with the resources and time to treat them heavily, because it's going to be, you're going to have to spray. There's really no way around it. If you don't spray, eventually you're going to get a high disease pressure or insect pressure, and it's going to become an issue. So there are some varieties. I could consult the literature. Like I believe La Feliciana is one, and La Rouge possibly. I'd have to check to see. Most of the time I get asked for the middle of the state up. But there are some selections, but just make sure you know what you're signing up for.
Okay.
And it's more time intensive. And that's one reason I'm doing the strawberries here, because I don't want to, even though for commercial systems they're sprayed very heavily on a homeowner scale, if it turns out it's one that has to be sprayed, it gets rejected, and I'm not going to recommend that one to you.
Okay. Okay. That's fair enough. We had one more question from our Instagram audience. So I get a lot of questions on our Instagram for these. And Hayden asked, can I grow a mango tree in Louisiana?
I thought we hit that one earlier, and I wouldn't recommend it. If you had a greenhouse or protected area, you could try it. They also struggle with diseases a little bit. Or is it might be papaya I'm thinking of, but anyway, I personally wouldn't, but you could attempt it.
Okay.
Probably the most tropical thing that I would feel comfortable with growing at home would probably be a pineapple.
Actually, okay, Carrie Hefner just put out a really cool video on that, and I need to get that from him to share. But
yes,
could you
that is a great video.
I need to get that from him. Can you explain how to do that kind of like cutting on a pineapple, like from one you buy at the store, and like how do you pop that up for people?
Not as well as Carrie can, but I can attempt. He's our apple and pineapple guy, so he's very good. I bet he makes a great fruit salad. Anyway, you're really going to probably, you see, I can't remember. I think he actually takes the whole thing off and doesn't leave any of the fruit attached for his.
I think that is what he said. Yes, like he cuts the crown off.
And he lets them preform. He looks for those preformed roots, and those do really well. They are much sweeter from home. That's something I would have to defer to his well-produced video.
Yeah, fair enough.
But a lot of people traditionally cut off and leave the top a little bit and root it from there. But when I saw how he was taking it away from the crown like that, I was much more in fan of how he's doing it.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, guys, I'm going to try to get you that video from Carrie so we can put that up on the Ag Center's Facebook page. Kathleen says her pomegranate is growing well in a clay pot. It's 4 feet tall, but not producing. Is there anything she can do?
I pretty much only recommend pomegranates here for ornamental value. Their fruit just does not hold up well. It would prefer to ripen and develop in an arid climate where you don't get a lot of rains. I had a pomegranate tree growing up. It was really an ornamental one, but really the fruit would rot before they were completely ripe. And that's just Georgia was looking at a few selections at one point. I don't know if anything came out of it. And I think even Auburn was. But there's just, in our hot, humid climate, I think there's other more satisfying fruit to grow. I know that's not a very satisfying answer for her because she has a large plant. But it's hard to bring them completely to fruition without throwing more money at it than if you were to just buy pomegranates at the grocery store.
Sure. Well, thank you for being on today. I kind of want to wrap it up. And could you talk about your strawberries one more time? Like, I didn't get to ask you what your favorite one so far has been.
And I think now, since I'm a little bit more mobile, we can look at the things a little bit better. So, this is the one I'm most excited about. Let's see. Can you see all right?
Yeah, we can see good.
So this one's Mara Du Bois. It's my French selection. It's supposed to be the best tasting one. Now, we'll have to see if it lives up to that. And the reason it's not available commercially is post-harvest qualities. Essentially, they can't ship it to you that well. But it's very popular in France where they'll pick it that day and people will buy it that day. So I'm excited about that. This one is called Albion. And it's used commercially, and it's one that's supposed to be very disease resistant, and it's more of a June bearing variety. So you can see it's flowering and making things now. Bare roots, I wasn't quite impressed with the bare roots I got from it as I was with this one here, but it's a very nice one. So, and then Sweet Charlie is one out of Florida. Okay. That's supposed to be really good and disease resistant, and one of the sweeter ones. But I'm a sucker for ornamental value, so I kind of like the ones with pretty flowers.
Wait, we can't see the flower.
Oh, let's see. I can't see my camera, so I'm kind of just playing around with it. All right. Tell me.
Nope, can't see it.
All righty. Let's see.
There it is.
All right. I have to go far out to where it probably is insignificant, but anyway. But yes. But other than that, probably from a flower standpoint, the one we started with, this red one, can you
That's
see it?
beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's probably my favorite one from an ornamental potential because it even has more petals than the standard one. So I think you were telling me earlier, it kind of looks like a poppy plant, and I
It
like that
does.
description. I think I'm going to steal that. So,
Do it. I was like, it looks so pretty. I like that. So, do you know if, well, I guess you haven't tried it yet. Do you know if the fruit's going to be good or not on like more of the ornamental strawberry one?
I can tell you, I have one. I'd have to walk across the yard to show it to you because it didn't fit in the table yet. That has kind of a pink flower, and the slugs got most of the fruit before I did, so I can't really tell you. That's one reason I said I got to build this table to actually enjoy my strawberries. But the fruit was not as sweet as some of the other selections. So
Okay.
sometimes there is a trade-off when you get a pretty flower that the fruit is not as numerous or as sweet, but I'm hoping that when I actually get to taste a ripe fruit of it, that it's pretty good.
That's
But
really,
another one I'm excited about, can you see the small seedlings on this one
yeah,
at
we can
all?
do it. Mm-hmm.
So this is an Alpine Strawberry. And this is used in Europe a lot, and it's supposed to be very flavorful, but it's probably only about the size of a dime. So I'm
Wow.
real excited about it. And I don't have it in yet. I have a request for the USDA germplasm database to get some Musk strawberries, which
Okay.
is what they grew in Europe before we had the commercial hybrids. And they're supposed to have a very strong flavor, but they just don't produce very heavily. And I'm hoping to get that in, but I don't have it yet. And also, I have a request to the USDA to get a variegated strawberry plant. I love variegated plants, and the leaves are supposed to be white and green. And I can tell you, based off of that, the fruit quality is probably not going to be great because the white part of a variegated foliage is contributing nothing to the plant. It's not
Okay.
photosynthesizing, but there's more to life than that. You can have a nice, pretty plant.
You're such an ornamental guy. So am I. I'm like, I love ornamentals. It's just great.
Yeah. So when I went to Forest Hill today to get fruit trees, I ended up with more ornamentals in the car than I did fruit trees.
You want to show everybody the variegated hibiscus you got? Because I think that was cool.
Oh yes, that is, and it's worth showing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Let's see, and I think it's easier to bring plants to the phone rather than bring the.
Yeah, I think so too.
It takes a while for me to learn things. So this is a variegated hibiscus, and it doesn't bloom very often because, like I told you, these leaves here are not contributing a great amount. It's the green part that's actually photosynthesizing. But this has ornamental potential in itself. And if you have this, you kind of decide, I'll take the trade-off and take prettier foliage in expense for fewer flowers. I have a whole collection of cool plants that I keep for the television programs I have on Good Day Sinla here. I've got some
Cool.
neat mosquito-resistant plants and cat-safe plants, all types of neat stuff.
We might have to have you back on to show all this off because that is awesome.
Yeah, because I have one plant. My cat is an indoor cat, but he tries to run outside to eat my lemongrass because it has a catnip effect.
Of course. Man, man. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I think everybody learned a whole lot. This was awesome.
I apologize for the transition, but we hopefully made it all right.
Oh, I think we did. I think everybody was good. I'm like, they had a lot of questions. So thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll be back on Thursday with the live at 5 with Brett Collier and Cody Sedodal from Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. We're doing a turkey wrap up basically on Thursday from the season this year. And Cody's going to come on with some statistics from Louisiana this year. So, and Michael, you just got a request from Megan. Yes, please come back on. We need a show about mosquito plants. So, and Pam just said, please do have him back on. And Messica just asked, what's your TV show? These plants look really cool.
So, well, I don't have a TV show yet, or that would be a big undertaking. But on Good Day Sinla on KLB in the central area of the state, about once a month, I make an appearance on different horticulture segments. I've had to be calling them in lately, which is not as fun because I love to show off plants. But I try, like the last one I did, I talked about my 3 favorite Louisiana super plants.
Oh, neat. Okay. Yeah,
So,
That's on their Facebook page, because we'll share some of their stuff with the Ag Center's page if you're on it and things like that. So look for that, guys, with him, because his segments are really cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So I try to keep it interesting. I was going to have one all about the Nursery Festival up here. Unfortunately, that got canceled. But I had a whole bunch of cool plant material too. But the nurseries here are still open as long as you maintain your social distance. So come up and visit Forest Hill, and do it quickly. A lot of them are about to shut down for the season because it's getting hot and they want to focus on other production. So if you hadn't been to Forest Hill yet and you're wanting to do something in your yard, just be safe and maintain your social distance. A lot of the nurseries are sterilizing everything, so come up and buy some plants from us.
That's awesome. And remember, guys, that all of our agents are still working. Again, it's just remotely, so email them, and the link is in the comments to find your local agent. And of course, everybody will be emailing you after this, Michael.
That's all right. I noticed I was getting some emails while we were on.
You're famous, man. Like, everyone is commenting right now. Terry's saying she enjoyed the segment, and Mesca said this has been really great. Thank you for coming on. So thank you again, and we're gonna have you back on to show off all those cool plants you got.
All right, I'll have to do an expedition into Forest Hill to make sure we have a good 10 or so that we can enjoy talking about.
Oh, that'd be so cool. All right, we'll see y'all on the next episode on Thursday. Y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.